Mr. Dencho Vikramasinghe. It's our first meeting with you.
Good morning.
Yeah, and in Indonesia, afternoon, in the afternoon.
Right, okay. Here it is about 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And you can see the university. You can see the background picture. That's the picture of part of the university.
Oh, okay, right.
Glasgow is a very old university. Very old.
Yeah.
Founded in 1451.
Good.
So, okay, welcome to Mr. Dencho. Today's presentation in our sustainability research. Mr. Hiskip, could you please to show the first slide in your PowerPoint?
Oh, okay. Okay, I try to share my slide.
Okay. The presenter today is Mr. Hiki Kawurur, and that he will present about sustainability framework in higher education institution to indicators, scale, and linkage to SDGs as his research plan in sustainability accounting. May we all always be in a good health and happiness. And well, to shorten the time, please, Mr. Hiski, to start your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Dia.
Okay, the time is yours.
Good morning, Professor Dencho Vikramasinghe, and good morning, all my classmates. Good afternoon, all my classmates in Prof. It is an honor for us having you, Prof. Dencho, in this online meeting. My name is Hiski Kawurur, and today I would like to share about my research plan. So my research plan about sustainability in higher education institution. So in this university, and the framework contains indicators, scales, and linkage to global agenda, which is the sustainability development goals. Okay, this is the introduction from my research plan. There are several phenomena about how higher education can promote sustainability development and what is the impact based on research from King 2020 or Sterling. They found and they believe the higher education institution can play a decisive role in promoting sustainability development by integrating sustainability as a cross-cutting principle in university teaching, research, operation, and knowledge transfer. With their education program, university had an important role in educating the social community about sustainability. And in line with those researchers, board 2020 found the role university can be very important to the effective promotion of sustainability principle. And empirical evidence found certain countries have enjoyed the benefit of higher education in economic, social welfare, and human resource aspect, which is also proof the importance of higher education and enhance the continuous focus of higher education in sustainability. But unfortunately, the current universal standard like GRI, ISO 14000, United Nations Forum on Sustainability Standard, not in particular arrange how sustainability framework in higher education institution. So based on this phenomenon, there are many attempts by researchers to develop sustainability framework in their university. For example, Aden Lee, 2021, using multi-criteria decision making, developed sustainability framework for university in Nigeria. In line with that, Da Silva, 2018, also developed sustainability framework for university in Brazil using content analysis. And many other researchers developed the sustainability in their university. Based on the literature about sustainability in higher education, and those researchers neglect how the sustainability framework run in practical action, which just mean there are no procedure or scale to evaluate the framework. And the current empirical studies also overlook to link the sustainability framework with the global agenda, which is sustainability development goals. So in this research plan, I try to fill the gap. So I developed the comprehensive sustainability framework that contains indicators, scale, and linkage to SDGs. And this is my research question. What are the sustainability indicators, scales that includes the SDG and the objective of my research plan? So there are 17 items for sustainability development goals, poverty, zero hunger, good health, education, so on. So to answer the research question, I use an appropriateness method, or in social science we call it the DLP method. And this is a qualitative approach that conclude the opinion from several experts. So based on Campbell, he said random method is a formal group judgment process which systematically combine expert opinion, scientific evidence by asking panelists or experts to rate, discuss, and rate the indicators. I use this method in my research plan. So this is the phase of the LP method. But in the LP, we didn't say it phases, but we call it round. So there are three, in general, there are 3 or 4 rounds in the LP method. The first round, as you can see in the slide, the upper flow chart, this is the first round. The first round intend to sum up sustainability indicators from current empirical studies or current existing standard. So to sum up this indicator, I use literature review. And to increase the objectivity of generating the indicators, I invite 2 inside expert. Inside expert means my co-worker in my university to generate the standard. After that, we develop the protocol and questionnaires. The questionnaires that contains all those indicators from literature review. And these questionnaires will be used in round 2. So in round 2, we distribute these questionnaires to outside experts. Based on several research, they said the outside expert must between 10 to 50 experts. So the outside expert have one criteria, several criteria. For example, they must have a PhD degree, and the background of their degree is sustainability or education, and they also must have experience as lecturer more than 10 years, and so on. So I use 10 to 50 outside expert to explore their knowledge about what is the relevant indicators for sustainability development in university, what is the less to most important indicators, the scales, and the linkage of these indicators to SDG, to Sustainability Development Goals. So this is for the round. And at the end of the round 2, we conclude the consensus of those outside experts. So what if we cannot conclude the consensus? So we move to round 3. Round 3 is give the feedback to those outside experts. So we use focus group discussion again, and we re-rate the indicators, we re-rate the scale or the linkage. So based on several studies, they found in using the LP method to conclude the consensus, 3 or 4 round is the researcher you can use 3 or 4 round to conclude the consensus. So in the final round or the third or the fourth round in the LP method, we can have the final sustainability framework, and this final framework contain all the indicators, linkage or the scale. I think that's all for my presentation about developing sustainability framework in university. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Sorry, I didn't catch your name. Hiski, yeah?
Yes, bro.
Yeah, Hiski, yeah. My role is to make some comments as Professor Eko mentioned to me. Yeah?
Yeah. Sorry, sir. I cannot hear your voice.
Are you doing Hiski? Are you doing, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you doing an accounting?
Your pardon, sir?
Are you doing an accounting PhD?
Yes, sir. I'm a doctoral student in accounting program.
In accounting, right? Okay. One of the questions regarding that I want to ask is, what is the accounting element here in your study? What is accounting? Sustainable development is a global concept. It's not all accounting. Accounting means doing calculations, developing calculative practices, using such calculations to control people, to govern people, to govern institutions. That is all about accounting. It's not necessarily double entry bookkeeping, any kind of calculations, any kind of indicators, any kind of use of indicators to control, govern people, institutions, units, departments, divisions. That is all about accounting. So can you tell me what is the accounting dimension in your study?
Okay, sir. So for the information, I majoring. So in Brawijaya University, we have a major, sir. So I'm majoring.
No. I'm asking, when you, in your PhD proposal,
yes.
What is the accounting element? Where is accounting in your study?
The management
Yeah,
of
if I understand that you are not clear about it at this stage. Therefore, one of the comments I want to make now is that you need to think
yes.
how this project can be an accounting project. For example, I have a PhD student from Bangladesh here in Glasgow University, a lady from Bangladesh. She studied how United Nations Sustainable Development Goals were used to control, manage a village of farmers in Bangladesh. Therefore, Sustainable Development Goals acted as a form of controlling, a form of managing,
Yeah.
a form of governing a section of population in a country. So therefore, Sustainable Development Goals can be implicated in the construction of an accounting entity, such as a village of farmers. So that was very interesting. Therefore, it is an accounting study. So that's therefore you need to think of how you could make this work as an accounting PhD. That is one of the comments. But the second comment is very serious. This is a kind of different way of understanding about a PhD. If you presented your proposal at Glasgow, lots of my colleagues, lots of professors may say that this is not a PhD. Because in a PhD, you don't develop a framework for the practitioners, so in this case, universities, to use. It is the job of a consultant. It is a job of a policymaker. It is a job of an administrator of the government or university. A comprehensive sustainable development framework. It is not a PhD. It is not an academic exercise. If you want to make this an academic exercise, what you need to do is that you need to study what's going on in a particular university or in several universities regarding the implementation of sustainable development goals. As an academic, you need to understand what is going on there under certain circumstances, in a particular context, within a particular cultural background, how religion impacts on the development of use of sustainable development goals, for example, or how higher education regulations in Indonesia is implicated in the implementation of sustainable development goals. How new forms of governance, how new forms of accountability systems are now being changed because of sustainable development goals. So you may explore what is going on rather than introducing a new framework. Introducing a new framework, development of a new framework is the job of a consultant, is the job of a policymaker, is the job of an administrator. It is not the job of an academic. Academic's job is to understand what is going on. To do that, you collect data to understand what is going on, using a particular methodology, and you, based on a particular research question, to fill a gap in the literature, published in well-ranked, internationally reputed journals. So you need to start with a review of the literature, very brief review of the literature, indicating recent publications, published in internationally reputed journals, and show a particular problem in that literature. Then you can solve that problem by introducing a different angle of a particular analysis. So my main comment is that in a PhD, you're not supposed to develop a framework. Instead, you need to understand, you need to demonstrate your understanding with a particular methodology, with a particular theoretical framework. Theoretical framework is different. When you develop a sustainable development framework, it is not a theory.
Yeah.
It is something for practice. Therefore, consultants would introduce such frameworks for universities to follow. That is not a theoretical framework. That's a kind of practical framework to follow. There is a difference between a theoretical framework and the framework you just mentioned.
Okay.
So that's that. Therefore, you need to think of your theme is very interesting and very timely, but you need to think of how you convert your topic into an understanding of what is going on. All of my PhD students here in Glasgow, I have 9 PhD students at the moment, working at different stages. All of my PhD students do quality case studies. For example, as I mentioned, that Bangladesh girl, she studied a particular village where farmers were controlled, where farmers were governed through the use of sustainable development goals. Therefore, she explored how the government of Bangladesh cascaded down the sustainable development goals into the level of life of farmers in their everyday life, how farmers' everyday life was controlled, how farmers' everyday life was governed through the sustainable development goals, which was implemented by the government of Bangladesh. Therefore, case study is that village, only that village, single, small, poor, remote village. That's a case study. Yeah. And also an Indonesian student who completed a PhD with me, he studied a community in the island to understand how sharing ideology, sharing idea was implicated in profit sharing idea of a restaurant, in only one restaurant. Therefore, he studied that community as well as that restaurant to understand how profit sharing practice was developed within that cultural context of community. So that's a case study. So what I'm saying is that in a PhD, you need to understand how things work, how things happen, what is going on. PhD students' role is not to develop a framework or set of prescriptions or set of guides for the practitioners or policymakers to follow. That is the job of the policymaker. That's the job of the consultant. But as an academic, you need to observe what is going on. And you need to explain by using a theory, asking the question, how and why things happen in that way. Therefore, you need to use, for example, you may select a particular university as a case study, just single university as a case study, and explore how they are doing things using sustainable development goals. And if they are not implementing sustainable development goals, that is not a case study for you to study. Okay. Therefore, you need to select an organization or university where they implement sustainable development goals. And you need to understand how they do these things, how things happen, how things work in that university in relation to the implementation of sustainable development goals. Therefore, you need to think of the PhD from an academic perspective rather than from a practitioner's or policymaker's perspective. Okay.
So thank you very much for the wonderful suggestion.
And also that comment will be useful for other students as well. I know actually because I've been reading lots of thousands of research proposals coming from various countries, and lots of people think that actually PhD is to develop, for example, lots of Middle East students, they think that PhD is to develop a framework for the government or for a university or for a company to follow. No, that is the job of a consultant. That's the job of a policymaker. As an academic, you need to understand what is going on in this world.
Is it okay, sir, to do?
Understand that? Yeah.
Yes. Is it okay to do a single case study?
Oh yes, single case study. Single case study. Case study can be a company, a university, or even a faculty. You don't need to study the whole university. Maybe a single department, maybe a faculty. That's a case study. Because in qualitative case study, we don't worry about generalization. Generalization to a population.
Yes.
That is not the aim of a qualitative study. We don't look for a statistical generalization. Instead, we use in qualitative research, that you need to actually you need to develop two types of skills. One, how to collect and analyze qualitative data. That's one thing. Second thing is how to use a theory, a social theory, to make sense of a story of a qualitative case study. Because in a qualitative case study, you are telling us a unique story of how things happened in a particular situation, in a particular company, in a particular faculty, in a particular university. Therefore, you need to explain why this is happening. You need to make sense of why this is happening. Therefore, we need a theory to explain. Theory is a lens to explain something. Theory is a way of explaining. Therefore, we borrow a theory from another discipline because accounting has no theory. Accounting has no theory. Sustainable development framework is not a theory, as I mentioned. Double entry bookkeeping is not a theory. Balance scorecard is not a theory. Activity-based costing is not a theory. Fair value accounting is not a theory. They are all methods, procedures, and practices. Accounting has no theory. But in a PhD, if you do a qualitative case study, You can study accounting as a social science. Therefore, we need to borrow a theory from other social sciences, such as sociology, such as anthropology, or even economics, or history. And we use such a theory to explain what is going on in that particular situation, in that particular case. Then you give some light, you give some explanation to the story you are telling us. Therefore, yes, you can select one single university. If the university is too big, maybe one faculty is enough, maybe one department is enough. But remember, the criteria is that particular department or faculty or university must be implementing SDGs. Otherwise, you don't have to study something.
Yeah.
If you want to study balance scorecard of a company, that company must be implementing balance. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. How many presentations? I can't remember. Are there some more presentations?
Miss Dian, maybe there are other presentations.
Just Mr. Hiski, bro.
There is only one presentation.
Yeah, just only one.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I'm a qualitative researcher. I've been in the academia for last 40 years. The last 35 years or so, I've been an active researcher. And since the completed my PhD at the University of Manchester in the UK, and all of my PhD students are qualitative researchers, and many best accounting departments in the UK, such as my own department at Glasgow, and other universities, such as best universities for accounting PhDs, such as the University of Manchester, where I studied, University of Warwick, or University of Birmingham, or University of Essex, London School of Economics, King's College, Queen Mary University. In these all big and best places, most accounting researchers take qualitative approaches. And they all read social sciences to find a theory for explaining their stories theoretically, or theorize their stories. Your story must be intertwined with a theoretical explanation in order to make sense of that story. That is what qualitative researchers do. If you want to look at my profile, just Google my name, and you can find my publications published in top-ranked, internationally reputed accounting journals. They're all qualitative research papers. Recently, at the moment, actually, 4 of us published a book chapter. It's not a journal. The book was edited by another professor from the University of Durham. And we wrote a chapter for that book. And the name of that book is Sustainability and Accounting. Hiski, I can send you a copy of that chapter. Yeah, it is to be published next month in the book. And in that chapter, we studied a particular local authority in Sri Lanka. Originally, I'm from Sri Lanka. Therefore, I have access to various institutions in Sri Lanka. We studied a particular local authority, local government, which is called a provincial council in Sri Lanka. They used sustainable development goals. They used sustainable development goals in the development of their strategic plan. And their strategic plan has cascaded down to operational level, the local by creating KPIs, key performance indicators, KPIs. That is how SDGs, their sustainable development goals, have become accounted. Yeah. Sustainable development goals were used to develop a strategic plan for the local authority. And that strategic divisions of the local authority. And that using those KPIs, those units, people, activities, actions are managed, controlled, governed, making them accountable. Yeah, that is accounting. That is accounting. Yeah. So that's a case study. But that's a book chapter. It is very light chapter. It is not a very serious journal paper. But we are going to write a different paper in due course based on my Bangladesh student's PhD. She is submitting a thesis in a few months' time, and at the same time she got a lectureship in a university in the UK. Therefore, she needs papers to be published very soon. She's going to demonstrate theoretically how Bangladesh government used sustainable development goals to control, to manage, to change, to modernize, yeah, to develop poor farmers' lives in remote villages. Therefore, she selected only one poor remote village in Bangladesh to study how sustainable development goals did that. Yeah, how SDGs did that. How SDGs changed farmers' life. How SDGs were used to create different types of performance indicators to control, to change, to develop farmers' life. Now these farmers are in Bangladesh, follow guidelines of sustainable development goals. Therefore, they have targets, they have goals. Yeah. Therefore, their life has now been target-oriented, goal-based. That is accounting. That is accounting. Some accounting practices are not necessarily to be calculated. By creating goals, by inspiring various ideas for farmers, people can get their life changed. That is accounting. Sometimes accounting indicators can be quantitative. Sometimes accounting indicators can be qualitative. Yeah, both qualitative and quantitative indicators can change people's life. Yeah, that is accounting. So your job as a PhD student is not to develop a framework, but to understand how this is happening in a particular situation. That is what you need to start. So you should not be a policymaker. You have they would their job. Policymakers, politicians, administrators, managers, university vice chancellors, rectors, they would do their jobs. Your job as an academic, as a student, to understand what is going on. Therefore, if you want to work with me in the future, I encourage you to think of doing qualitative case studies.
Okay, I love to start.
Yeah. Next week, I'm thinking of that. Next week, I'm doing a workshop for my PhD students, first year PhD students on qualitative research. It will be 2 half-day workshop, 2 days, Monday half day, Monday morning, and Tuesday morning. I said to Echo that you may also join that, but now I'm thinking that my students are a bit advanced, meaning they know qualitative case studies because we recruited them, we got them as a PhD students because they have a kind of broad understanding of qualitative studies. Therefore, I'm happy to do a separate workshop for you, online, maybe a half day, to give you basic ideas of qualitative case study. What is qualitative case study? Why we do qualitative case study? How qualitative case studies can be better than quantitative studies. We are actually critiques of quantitative studies. We find lots of limitations and deficiencies, problems of quantitative studies, hypothetical or deductive quantitative studies. We see lots of limitations. I know that in Asian countries, lots of people think that research must have hypotheses and research must have quantitative elements. You need to collect quantitative data. You start with hypotheses and then you test hypotheses and you limit your analysis to understanding relationships between dependent and independent variables. That is a kind of Asian methodology. In Asian universities, they think that that is the methodology. Now, there are other methodologies. Qualitative research is an alternative methodology. Most accounting departments in the UK and also in Europe. Last month, I went to a department in France, HEC Business School in France. That is one of best business schools in Europe, in France. And they all do qualitative case studies in the Department of Accounting. And I made a presentation, a qualitative study. Again, my presentation was another Bangladesh study. One of my Bangladesh PhD students, who is now a lecturer at Dhaka University in Bangladesh, he studied a PhD, he did a PhD with us in Glasgow. He studied a poor remote village in Bangladesh again, where poor women in that village got microfinance and live their lives with that finance. But these women in Bangladesh are illiterate, largely illiterate, meaning they cannot read, they cannot write. They can speak, they cannot read, they cannot write. They are illiterate, yeah? But they deal with microfinance. They do microfinance entrepreneurial jobs, entrepreneurial exercises. For that, they calculate profits. They calculate loan installments, the number of installments they must pay, the interest of loans, etc. They do calculations, but they can't read and write. You know, in accounting history, accounting historians tell us that accounting, double entry bookkeeping was, or accounting was developed with the development of writing. Whenever people started writing, accounting also developed. Yeah, double entry bookkeeping was a form of writing. Yeah, but the question, then interesting research question is how people do accounts without reading, without writing. Yeah, that's an interesting question. That's an interesting research question. Therefore, research questions must be very interesting ones, must be very inspiring ones. My PhD students found that they do accounts verbally, by speaking to each other, by speaking to their microfinance groups. Yeah, and that form of accounting we called oral accounts. Therefore, in his PhD, he found how oral accounts were developed in microfinance in that village. Yeah, that's very interesting. For that, you need a social theory. We borrow theories from sociology. He used I'm trying to simplify the theory. There's a famous French philosopher called Michel Foucault.
Yes.
Michel Foucault.
Yeah.
Yes. No, power knowledge relations he studied. Yeah. How knowledge of microfinance, which is powerful because that knowledge is held by global financial bodies and huge microfinance institutions. Therefore, microfinance knowledge is held by powerful institutions and powerful financial authorities. Yeah, and these powerful institutions and authorities are now entering into some uncharted territories, such as poor villages where people even cannot read and write. Yeah, that is the power of neoliberalism in this world today, because markets are now developed. Yeah, where markets cannot be developed because but power of microfinance, power of global finance, power of knowledge of microfinance can even enter uncharted. Therefore, markets are now, that's the beauty of neoliberalism. Markets are now being developed where markets cannot be developed. That's a kind of theoretical explanation using power knowledge relationship. So therefore, we are giving some sense, giving some meanings to the story of how oral accounts are developed. Therefore, qualitative research is a storytelling methodology. You are telling us a story. You are developing a story, very interesting story, very unique story. It's not a generalizable story, but it can be generalized theoretically. Theoretically, in the sense that the beauty of neoliberalism is that neoliberalism make markets where markets cannot be developed. Yeah, that's a theoretical generalization, not a statistical generalization. Therefore, by doing a qualitative case study, you compile an interesting, unique, appealing story. And by using a social theory, you are giving a meaning to that story. You are making some sense of that story. Therefore, I like to encourage you to do qualitative research. Then you can benefit from my association by developing qualitative case studies. Therefore, I would actually ask ECHO to set up a date for me to conduct a kind of very initial basic workshop for you to understand the basics of or the are implicated in accounting numbers, etc. That's called market-based accounting. They do quantitative, they're American-like studies. But in accounting department, we are just like European studies. European nature of PhD is doing qualitative case studies, whereas American nature of doing PhD is quantitative. Yeah. Yeah, we are in the tradition of anti-American, and we write anti-American English, and we do anti-American research, which is qualitative case studies. Even Americans follow Western philosophers, Marx, Foucault, Derrida, etc. Weber, yeah, they're all West European philosophers. Okay, any reaction, any comment, any more question for me from anybody in the class?
So,
Excuse.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, excuse me, Prof.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, could you give us some references about direction of sustainable accounting in the doctor level, in the PhD level, like
Sustainable development, there are key authorities who wrote on sustainable development and accounting. I can send a list of readings to ECHO, and he will be able to distribute to you. Yeah. One of the Jan Bebington's work, have you heard of him? Jan Bebington. Bebinton. She's now at the University of Birmingham in the UK. She is one of authorities, Jan Bebinton, Bebington, Jan Bebinton. And there is another professor in the same department at the University of Birmingham. He's Ian Thompson, Thompson, Ian Thompson. And Rob Gray, you must have heard of him. Rob Gray, Gray. He died from corona actually last year. He worked at the University of St. Andrews here in Scotland, in the UK. He's key authorities of sustainable development or sustainable accounting or social and environmental accounting, Rob Gray. And also another professor who died from corona, Jeffrey Unerman, Unerman, Jeffrey Unerman. He died also last year from corona. He was at the University of Lancaster in the UK. He wrote a lot on social and environmental accounting, where you can find sustainable development. And also lastly, the lady who edited the book I mentioned, where we wrote a chapter, that is Carol Adams, A-D-A-M-S, Carol Adams. She is a professor of accounting at the University of Durham. And I will send our book chapter about the implementation of sustainable development goals in that Sri Lankan local authority, provincial council. So these are key authorities in the world who wrote sustainable accounting. I can send you the full details of bibliographical details of the references to Echo, then he can circulate the list of references to all of you. Yeah. I think it is if you are studying a university, because you need to, sustainable development is not accounting. It is an idea. It is an idea developed by United Nations, and all ideas, not only sustainable development goals, even poverty alleviation programs of World Bank or structural adjustments programs of World Bank, or privatization programs in the 1990s, led by World Bank and IMF. They are all ideas, global ideas. Global ideas travel around the world very quickly. That is called globalization. And when global ideas travel around the world, national governments embrace them. National governments embrace them through political and economic programs, policies, and they try to implement those ideas in local situations. Then there can be huge difference between the original idea and the actual implementation. That is what you need to explore as a researcher. How things happen differently, uniquely, or maybe in an opposite way. How things happen. Sometimes things would happen in an opposite way, and things can be resisted by people. That is also an interesting area to study. How sustainable development goals are resisted by some groups of people in a society. That's also interesting to study. Therefore, PhD student is to understand what is going on. Global ideas are very ideal type. but the actual implementation of these ideas in situations, unique situations, can be completely different because ideas are translated. Ideas are translated into locals. For example, calculable microfinance practices are translated into incalculable oral accounts in Bangladesh, rural villages. That's very interesting. Therefore, sustainable development is not accounting. That's an idea. But these ideas are used to develop accounts. Ideas are used to develop accounting practices. Balance scorecard, for example, I'm sure you must have heard of it. Balance scorecard is an idea of performance management, idea of integrating company strategy into performance indicators. That's an idea. But it can be an accounting practices because balance scorecard produces KPIs. Yeah, and these KPIs are used to control people, units, processes, etc., making people accountable. So accounting makes people accountable. That is accounting. Accounting makes people, things, units, departments, organizations, population categories, villages, streets, communities accountable. So I have a PhD, a new PhD student from China. She studied a girl. She studies a street in China, neighborhood community in China. And she explores how pandemic regulations, COVID-19 pandemic regulations make this community accountable for a healthy life. That is accounting. How Chinese government's regulations make a particular community accountable for a healthy life. That is accounting. So that is what she's studying this community. There are 200 people in that community. That's a street in China with some flats. They live in those flats in that street, and they are organized as a neighborhood community. And they are being accountable through the government regulations of China. So that's interesting. That's a case study. That's a qualitative case study. And that is what she is going to do within 4 years. That she is studying that street. Okay, Dan, I think I answered your question, but the details can be sent, yeah, by email.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof.
Any more questions?
Maybe our dear audience can ask in some question or suggestion about the research plans from the Mr. Hiski. Okay, Danny Hermansyah, okay, please.
Okay, thank you, Miss Dian, for the opportunity. First, let me give an appreciation for the knowledge, Prof, that you have given to us. Thank you. I am Dani, graduate student at Brawijaya University, majoring in government accounting. Because of half of the participation here in this meeting were the graduate or master students, Could you please give advice to us how to develop research for graduate students or master students, as how it differs from PhD students, especially by standard of the University of Glasgow? Mm, I think just that it. Thank you for the time.
Sorry, I didn't follow you exactly what you are asking. I didn't catch that up. You want me to tell you how to develop a research plan?
Yeah, how to develop a research plan for graduate student, graduate or master student, sir.
Yeah. We
And
don't call it a research plan, we call it a research proposal.
okay.
It's a big lecture. I don't have time to do that now. How to develop a research proposal can be actually discussed in detail at a different workshop. I'm happy to actually do it on a later uh, date. But basically, in a research proposal, you need to do three things very clearly. One, what you want to study. You have to articulate it very clearly, what you want to study. Second, why it is important to study. You need to justify the importance. Why it is important to study now. What is to be studied, why it is to be studied. And thirdly, how it is to be studied. How? So, three questions. What are you going to study? You have to articulate it very clearly. Secondly, why is it important to study now in relation to the literature? Why it is important? So, in order to answer that question, you need to actually do a critical evaluation of the literature to justify why it is important to study. And thirdly, how you want to study, meaning what is the methodology you want to follow? What kind of theoretical framework you want to use? So in a research proposal, you need to specify those three things very clearly. In Glasgow, our practice is you need to develop about 10 or so page document, 10 or so page document, answering those three questions. That is a research proposal. So I have conducted workshops for students. Normally I take half a day to talk about how to develop a good research proposal, a competitive research proposal. Okay. Is this discussion useful today?
Very useful, sir.
Yeah, Prof.
Did you understand me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, did you understand me? Was it clear to you?
Clear, Prof.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's clear.
good. Yeah, Nasta. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing it. It's Nasta. Yeah, was it clear?
Yes, Crystal, Prof. Thank you for
Okay,
your advice. It's kind of
Yeah.
enlightening for me, especially.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
okay. Thank you very much for your participation and patience. We will see you again next week at 8 o'clock in the UK time on Thursday.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Prof. Mohon izin.